Hello, everyone. It's another episode of the Calvin Show, where we are about creating a life that really kicks ass, and that you really love. And I actually had a topic that I wanted to talk about today because I just kind of realized that one of the things that is really, really important for me in terms of making my life work is simplicity. So I guess I'm just going to jump right into it. I was kind of looking at the profile of the people that I'd want to hire and work with, and I realized that one of the traits that is really, really important to me is this ability to come up with simple solutions to things. And it's kind of obvious that would be something that's important to me because I chose to name my software product Simplero.
Absolutely.
So you would think that would be clear.
I would also think, just as you mentioned that, I feel like as a coder or as a developer, oftentimes what really is awesome for you guys is when the simplest piece of code or the simplest solution to something you're trying to do.
Exactly. Yeah. And the thing is that things can get complex and out of hand. Complexity can get out of hand so quickly. Like there was this project on the subway in New York where they wanted to install tracking so they would know where the trains were at all times. And there's like one skunkworks project that did it for like $100,000, or maybe it was $1 million, but it wasn't a whole lot. And then there's the official way where all kinds of complexities are added in and requirements, a lot of them from unions who don't want to risk losing jobs. And this becomes like a multi-billion-dollar decade-long project that never happens, right? And that's really the difference between simplicity and complexity, and insisting on simplicity. And to me, it's the only way that is going to ever work for me. And what I realized is that several things. One is that with Simplero, with coding, I will stay away from implementing something if I can't find a simple way to do it. And I have lots of features that I have that are like work in progress, and I'll get into it and think it's simple, and then I realize, oh shit, like complexity is starting to mushroom out of control, and I'll have to step back and be like, I need to find a simpler way to look at this problem. And until I find that, I'm not going to implement it, because once I implement it and add this complexity into the system, it's there. And It's going to be extremely hard to pull it back out, right? Because people now expect that feature, and I need to support all of that. Sometimes you do have to just cut your losses and be like, yes, I know I added this, but I'm going to have to find a way to withdraw it. It's going to cost some pain. But you really, really, really want to only do that as a last resort. So it's much better to not let it happen in the first place.
It's so interesting. I guess probably because it's election season, I'm thinking so much about the government, and I feel like it's a very similar analogy.
It's exactly what's wrong
with these things that are super complicated to try and fix a problem when there's a simple solution that the bureaucracy just can't allow to happen for whatever reason.
Exactly. And it's both a matter of like bureaucracy and like here we have all these rules in place, and like once something is in place that benefits someone, then those people are going to be super upset if you try to change it.
Totally.
It's also politicians. They're like, well, I mean, it's a classic thing when with software projects that are driven by politics, right? Well, we really need this feature, and we need this button there, and we need it to be this thing to be blue, and we need to have like all this stuff, and then the programmers are trying to figure out how to make it happen. Or the bureaucrats or whatever it is, and it's just a disaster because it's designed wrong to begin with. And is that feeling that you like? It's not until you get into it sometimes that, for me, that I realize, holy shit, no, it's not. It's not. This is actually complexity spiraling out of control.
Can you think of a really good example where you realized that you were doing something that was too complex and you had to kind of step back and be like, okay, what's another way? What's a simpler way?
Yeah, absolutely. I was looking at adding automation to Simplero for a long time, right? And you kind of want to think down the line and be like, well, I want to create something that's robust enough to accommodate the use cases that I know are going to come up, or that I'm 90% certain. But then you really want to scale back and say, how can I find a simple solution? So automations was something that was sitting on the shelf for 3 years, I think, or something like that, until I finally was like, I cracked it. I was like, whoa, okay, if we just do it like we have some triggers already who can do certain actions. What if we just start out by saying, let's sequence those actions and introduce some weight states between them. Then we can do conditions later. We can add more complexity later if we need to, but let's just make that very simple thing work. And in that way, like I was able to do it in a week or something,
Wow.
instead of like months of work. But it's the real work is in coming up with that simple solution in the first place.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, oftentimes we think of a solution and we're like, oh, this is great. But then the path to that is so much considerably longer than a simple solution that might take longer to think up. But once you implement it, it's just instantaneous.
And what I realized too is that it's all about, if the solution is complicated, it's because you're not looking at the problem right. So it's not a matter of coming up with a better solution. It's a matter of understanding the problem better, or seeing the problem from a different angle.
Yeah.
Redefining the problem, right? That's where the reward is.
Yeah, that's amazing, actually.
Right. Yeah.
It's not about finding different solutions or better solutions. It's about looking at the problem from as many angles as you can until you find one that presents you with the right solution.
Yes. And it's for me, it's very much a gut feel, but I'm sure you could metricize this. But like, for example, if you look at a societal level, inequality, right? Inequality is a problem. Well, if you define the problem as inequality, then the solution is there should be more equality.
Right.
But what if the problem is that there's no longer a path to a sustainable life as a middle class kind of worker, which means like that we leave a ton of people behind, which is then a burden on society and like not satisfying for them. But it also means that there is not a middle class of consumers for the products, which hurts businesses.
Correct.
Like, all right, so maybe it's not the inequality that's the problem in itself. It's that there's no path for people, to make a decent middle class living. So maybe that's a problem that we could solve, or maybe we need to look at the problem in a different way altogether again. Right.
Right. And for me, also what I really loved about the way you described your process was looking forward to. So not only are you looking for a simple solution for whatever problem you're facing right now, but you're looking for a simple solution that will continue to be simple 10 steps down the line. Yeah.
And you never know what's going to happen, 2 or 3 steps down the line, but you might have a feeling for it and look into it, but then just do what you need to do right now. Right?
And I feel like also simple solutions oftentimes allow for more flexibility. So if conditions change 3 or 4 steps down the line, then a simpler solution is easier to kind of augment to.
Much easier, yeah.
Right.
And it's much clearer for everybody to understand, like what are the consequences of this change that we make and all that. An analogy that came up for me was about the Copernicus. I don't know how to pronounce that in English, but with back when people thought that the Earth was the center of the known universe and sun and planets revolved around the Earth, they had to come up with all these massively complex equations to explain the movement of the heavenly bodies. And there was like circles upon circles upon circles upon and then the variations and all that shit, right? And once you shift your perspective on it and you're like, what if the sun is the center and we're revolving around that? And all of a sudden the math becomes simple. Like the math doesn't lie, right? If the math is complicated, like for example, the US tax code, then you're not looking at it right. You're not looking at it effectively.
That's beautiful. It makes me think about what are the extremely complex things that we hold to be truth right now, whereas if in the future we gain new understanding and they'll seem so simplistic.
Yeah,
it's just an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for me, it's something that is I abhor personally. I feel like I have a dyslexia for complexity. Like
Mm.
my brain doesn't work well with it. I need things to be simple and reduced to fundamental simple principles.
Mm.
And once I have that, then I'm super effective and I can make a lot of shit happen. But if there are too many complexities, that just bothers me. I don't function well in that environment. So for me, that's kind of like, you know, how Richard Branson talks about being dyslexic has really helped him because it's a shortcoming, but it forced him to, I forget what it forced him to do, but
Well,
it forced him to
develop
do
his other skills, develop his listening skills, probably.
exactly communication and whatnot. Yeah. Or yeah, orally and connect with people that way.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's something similar with that here. And it's like, I want my life overall to be simple. I want my software to be simple. I want my my marketing strategies to be simple. I want my, whatever it is. And I'll keep looking until I can, like, it's like, if you can't write clearly, it's because you're not thinking clearly.
Right.
It's the same kind of thing. If you need to distill it down to the essence of what it's about.
Well, and clear thoughts lead to clear words, and clear words lead to clear actions.
Mm-hmm.
And when we act clearly is when we act right for ourselves.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So maybe if we're synthesizing what you've come up with today, it's being patient enough to wait for the simple solution.
Yeah. And to insist on it, right? To keep looking until it feels right. I think for me, it's very much a feeling thing too, right? It's like you can just, there's something, not right about this. It bothers you. And sometimes you're like, something about this bothers me, but it's not too bad. Let's get it done. Like, let's move on, right? But in most cases, and you got to know where it matters and not. There's a story about the original iPhone where they were very close to pretty far down the road, and it was basically made too late to make changes.
Mm-hmm.
And Steve Jobs was supposedly holding this phone, and he was like, I just can't fall in love with this thing. We got to go back to the drawing board. And then they went back and I don't know, what it was, but it was like they made some dramatic changes at a point where it was kind of too late. But it was just, didn't feel right. It just didn't sit right with him. And I think
it's so interesting too, just because I know we've talked so much about your path to being able to truly pay attention to your feelings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And giving those and honoring those. And I imagine that the simple solutions really started to present themselves once you were able to do that.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, I think it's always been an appeal to me, but I guess it's also a matter of just self-worth and not overruling my own feelings and intuition, and just being like, well, this is a value for me, this is important, and then going with it without needing to justify it other than this is important to me.
This is right for me.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for bringing this to me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I guess the takeaway is like, really, if simplicity is something that matters to you, and I think I think it really should be something that matters to everybody, right? Because it's really, it really simplifies, but it really allows you to move faster and more effectively and more efficiently in any area of your life. Like, it's even like in relationships, or, I mean, there's always going to be complexity, and it's nature to, bring in ever more complexity, but it's our job to kind of be the opposing force. I kind of feel like it's a masculine drive too. Like the female energy is one of complexity, and the masculine energy is one of like cutting through and like holding the space, and then like finding, I'm not saying men and women, I'm just saying masculine and feminine energy.
Right.
Of finding that what doesn't change versus what does change. Like, what are the fundamental...
finding the solid as opposed to the soft, I guess. Yes. Putting it.
Yeah. I would say what like I've just been like totally studying a bunch of masculine, feminine stuff recently again, and just realized how like the way this is from David Data that I was listening to, but the way he defines it as like the masculine is pure consciousness, and the feminine being like color and light and like everything that's changing, and the masculine being everything that never changes, like consciousness just is, right? Doesn't change.
Mm.
That kind of like yeah.
Awesome.
So anyway, insist on simplicity and chill the fuck out as you're doing it.
Chill the fuck out.
Chill the fuck out.
All right, man. We'll see you soon.
Yes, take care.
Bye.